See, in the advanced syntax, that course we have a module, morphosyntax. So, in fact, I plan to offer it as a separate paper, as a separate course. But because we don't have much slot to include morphosyntax as a separate course, therefore we have merged morphosyntax with advanced syntax. So advanced syntax, you already completed to the point of minimalism, and then we have completed the other models of linguistics. We call it as other paradigms of linguistics, which case grammar, lexical functional grammar, cognitive grammar, and all these paradigms of linguistics, other than transformation genetic paradigms, we have already discussed. And now I want to make it pretty clear that the Chomskyan paradigm is not the only paradigm in linguistics. There are many paradigms, and there are many paradigms which deals the different dimensions of language, and if the paradigms are one way and another way, relatively better than Chomsky paradigm. That is the reason we have included the other paradigms of linguistics in the advanced syntax topic, because there is a hegemony of Chomskyan syntax in the general syntax of linguistics. I don't want you to be subjugated by that hegemony. I don't want you to believe that Chomskyan syntax is the only syntax in linguistics. So our second unit, our second module, the third, we have to go through. We have to be. You should be exposed to the morphosyntax, and morphosyntax maybe you have already heard about morphophonemics and other morphosemantics, all things. And morphosyntax, maybe maybe the may not be much you heard about morphosyntax, because morphosyntax is something like something a new exploration uh, in modern linguistics. Not much so new, but from 1917, you can see the development of morphosyntax. Maybe other than the modern linguistic theories, traditional grammars, traditional grammar of across the world must have been treated the relation between syntax and morphology in different aspect, but not much, you know, not conceptualized as morphosyntax today. And this module of morphosyntax, I am expecting you, after having this module, you should be able to understand the relation between morphology and syntax, and which we treat as a separate aspect of separate levels of language, and you should be able to understand the relations. And to understand the relation, I am sure that you are able to distinct that both morphology and syntax, because you already come across one course on morphology and two course on syntax. And that is the first one I am first outcome I am expecting from you. And second, you should be able to identify the morphosyntactic features in any language. Whatever the language you deals, you should be able to identify the morphosyntactic properties of any language. And once you identify the morphosyntactic properties, you should be able to analyze the morphosyntactic proper values in any language. I will explain to you what the difference between feature and value in the other part of this lecture. And once you analyze, and you should be able to develop the morphosyntactic arguments and generalizations in any of the languages you prefer to work on. See, arguments can be developed, observation can be made, and arguments can be made, but you can make a generalization about some of the morphosyntactic phenomena only by considering the data from other languages. Therefore, after this this module, I'll be introducing some of the cross-linguistic databases of languages across the world. So on which you can depend those databases to get data for this type of generalizations. So these are the four outcome I'm expecting from you after this class. So we will discuss why morphosyntax is necessary in linguistics. And when you look at the when you are exposing to the minimalism, you may see that it is highly sophisticated to deal any language. You may think that, but it is not as you think or as we think, because out of 5,000 to 7,000 languages across the world, only 10% of the languages are state color. 1 minute. You are the only one here, so there can be until less than 10 minutes. Stain call. Okay, so since I have recorded without any participants, it says that it ends at 2. Okay. Sorry. And okay. So why morphosyntax? Why morphosyntax is emerged as a sub-branch in linguistics, and then we'll define what is morphosyntax. Then we'll come to the very specific point like morphosyntactic properties. Then we'll come to morphosyntactic features and values. And fifth and fourth, we will deal inventory of morphosyntactic features. How to identify the features. These are the content we will go to deal. And finally, I will introduce you, or during this course, this lecture, I'll be citing some of the works, major works by you know by the different linguists who have developed the the domain morphosyntax. And why morphosyntax? See, there are two factors constituted. There are two factors constituted the development of morphosyntax. And one is theoretical. See, second is data driven. Theoretical means in the course of the development of linguistic theory, there are some indeficiency of the linguistic theory, or some of the weak arguments of linguistic theory, or some of the weak purvashas of linguistic theory, on which a response has been developed. Therefore, as theoretical advancement, morphosyntax developed. Second thing, when you look at the languages across the world, from out of 5,000 to 7,000 languages, only 10% of the languages are described and explained. So therefore, the rest of the languages are left undescribed. So as much as you describe languages, that much you will be, you know, able to know that the theoretical framework which we have been developing for centuries are not enough to describe those languages. So this one is the MS is a response to lexicalist hypothesis by Noam Chomsky. See, in the last semester we have been talking about lexicalist hypothesis. In 1970, Chomsky is developed it. So I'll tell you what is lexicalist hypothesis. Once again, we will do it. Okay. And second one is data driven morphological richness of the languages across the world, because many of the theoretical paradigms of linguistics is based on not based on agglutinative languages, but based on different type of language like English, French, which are very less in which are very not much rich in morphology, but very rich in syntax. So therefore, that is the second thing. First is theoretically there is a necessity of the emergence of morphosyntax. Second is the there is a the demand from the side of languages, which also made a necessity of emergence of morphosyntax. So these are the two things which I will explain once again. See, what lexicalist hypothesis says. That is very simple. Lexicalist hypothesis totally dismantling the space of morphology. Syntactic rules cannot make reference to any aspect of the word internal structure. So even in the minimalism also, you cannot see this. You cannot see anywhere morphology exists. So lexicalist hypothesis argue that the system of grammar that assembles words is separate from the system of grammar that assembles phrase out of words. See, there is no relation between the system of words which assembles words and system of phrases. So the sentence is an outcome, and words is are input of the phrases. The system that produce words is supposed to use different principles from the system that produce phrases. Both are entirely different. Additionally, the word system strictly precedes the phrases system. This has the result that phrases system has no access to subword unit. In addition, the output of phrasal system never forms the input of the word system. It indicates that when you generate a sentence, suppose if I generate a sentence, I am going, so the final outcome, the final physical realization which you are accessing is phonological realization or phonetic expression of through my articulatory organs. And the in the phrasal level, or in terms of the minimalism, it is enumerated the lexical entry based on the subcategory features of lexical entry. The phrase node is generated, to which the words are selected, and it's spelled out. So the words is already inserted to the phrase. Phrase generate the sentence. Therefore, there is no space. There is no space for morphology at all. And even there is a space for morphology at all, that it never interact with the syntax. That was the lexicalist hypothesis. So lexicalist hypothesis is giving a predominance to lexicon, lexical categories, the subcategory features of lexicon. For example, if you say coming, so see that come is entered into the phrasal in the base. It enumerated depends upon the phrasal node generated. It is inserted there as the lexicalist insertion theory. And when it comes out as sentence, and the morphology is an input for the syntax, that is the basic argument of lexicalist hypothesis. These are the major arguments. Interaction between the word and phrase system is unidirectional, and word is morphology is interacting with the phrase system, but it not response. It is the relation is not reciprocal. The output of the word formation system provides the input to the phrasal syntax, and not vice versa. Phrase is the output of phrase is the word is input, phrase is the output. Phrases makes the sentence possible, and the output of the phrasal syntax provides the input of the word formation system is wrong according to lexical hypothesis. See, it is not the syntactical structure generate the words, but the words are there in the before the formation of the sentences. Morphology is the input of syntax, not the output of syntax. Morphology is the, if you say morphology is an input, see, in fact, in generative grammar, you cannot see morphology at all. You can see only lexical items, each subcategory features based on the not generated by the phrasal or X bar notions. It is transforming. So there is no space for morphology in the syntax at all. That is the reason the most critic of lexical hypothesis, Anderson, his very classical article in 1982 is Where is Morphology? It is appeared in the Linguistic Inquiry. So maybe my lecture, I'm citing many of these arguments from the Anderson, which you can, I'll send you these articles to you after this lecture. And what Anderson say, it is wrong. lexicalist hypothesis is wrong. What lexical hypothesis say? There is no relation between the morphology and the syntax. Word is only an input of syntax, and there is no morphology after the syntax. There is no morphology after the syntax, and that is the argument. And the relation between morphology and syntax is unidirectional. Only morphology interacts with the syntax. Syntax is not accessing to the word structure. This is the lexicalist hypothesis. And it is wrong. Phrasal and word formation system are not distinct. That is the argument, made by Anderson. A model grammar does not need two separate generative components, but only one. So output of the phrasal system can demonstrably precede word formation. So these are the very core arguments of lexical hypothesis, which Anderson said it is wrong. The phrasal syntax has access to the subword unit. Subword unit in the terms it is morphology. What Anderson 1982 argues that in the article Where is Morphology, it argues that the phrasal rule, that means the syntactical rule, have access to the morphology of the word formation. That means morphology is an outcome of syntax. So we'll see one by one what this argument is. See, if you look at the, let me check it in between whether this recording is going on properly. Yes, okay. Yes. See, the first counter argument made by Anderson is phrasal syntax can feed word formation. See, for example, see the English word he is coming, it is a declarative sentence, and is he coming is interrogative sentence. It is a transformation. In Chomsky syntax, the declarative can be transformed as an interrogative sentence. Here, the inflected word coming is formed before the syntactical transformation because both are same. There is no need to have a morphological change in the name in the word. But there this argument is right because morphology is an input of syntax because coming is already there because he is coming and is he coming, both coming can be inserted to the point where the maybe the in a head final language, where this can be inserted. So for in the case of English, a language which is not inflectional, it is very correct. But when you look at Malayalam, you can see the contrary, evidence from Malayalam. See, Malayalam very simple sentence, avan varunu. That means avan he and were come unnu. He is coming. See, it's a declarative sentence. If you want to transform it as an interrogative sentence, avan varuno. See here, if you look at the transformation, here that declarative is transformed as interrogative. Here, the interrogative inflection is realized only at the end of the word. That is only morphological. Is he coming? Here, the phrasal syntax of Malayalam sentence 2 feeds the interrogative inflection in Varuno. Here, that phrasal property of interrogative feature is expressing only through morphology. In Malayalam, syntactical transformation is expressed only in morphological inflection in this word. It is nothing to do with the syntax at all. But that doesn't mean there is no syntax, but syntactical properties are expressed through morphology. So Varunu is inflected for Varunu. It is purely the syntactical transformation is expressed through the morphology. That is why phrasal syntax can feed word formation. Here, that phrasal outcome is the input, phrasal output of having a interrogative sentence is an input for word formation. That is the first one. But therefore, based on the Malayalam, you can argue that there is a relation between morphology and syntax in Malayalam. Syntactical properties are expressed through morphologically. That means it feeds, it not precedes. Syntactical features are the input for morphology in Malayalam. The second argument is that phrasal syntax has access to morphology. What lexicalist hypothesis argue that there is no access. Syntax doesn't have any access to morphology at all. Raju, look at the sentence. Raju drank the water. It's declarative. Did Raju drink water? To make it as interrogative, the word form drink is unaffected by the syntax in English. See, it only the tense form is changed there. Did Raju drink the water? See here that you can see that both words are formed, before the formation of the sentence. Because the moment you split drank, yeah, into did, you can separate it. It happened there. But look at Malayalam. See here, it is having access. See here, Malayalam, Raju Vellam Kudichu, Raju drank water. Raju Vellam Kudicho. Here, here Kudichu is a declarative sentence. Here Kudicho, it is basically an interrogative sentence. Interrogative transformation of that declarative as interrogative is happen only through the inflectional form of Kudichu as a Kudicho, because Kudicho O is a question suffix. Even you can look at the English sentence also, you can see the weakness of that argument of that. See here, even the word drank, this is also affected by the syntax. The moment you transform drank into that lexical entry of drank in the declarative sentence as a lexical transformation of lexical change of a morphological change of drank into drink or did drink in the interrogative sentence. Even the syntax is accessing the morphology in English. Therefore, phrasal syntax has access to morphology. This is the second argument. And the third argument is that morphology and syntax obey the same principles. What this lexicalist hypothesis argue that both are separate principles. Morphology is nothing to do with the syntax. See the syntactic derivation of Tamil sentence given below, which is compared to the morphological inflection of the verb finite verb. See, I am just giving a inflectional word of Tamil as equal by comparing the same inflectional word to a sentence in Tamil. See, Kumar Vamban, see Kumar came. That is the where you can have you can see the Kumar, he, and you can see there's a change in the glossing. There it is Kumar, not he. Kumar come past third person singular agreement. Kumar came. And look at the left from your right side. You can see syntactic derivation, and you can see the equivalent morphological inflection. See in Kumar Vanthan subject, that is noun phrase. Noun is Kumar. In the verb phrase, verb is wa. You can see the inflectional phrase. Tense is ta. Agreement is an. So here you can see that derivation is very clear in the syntactical structure. The same Vandan, you can see Vandan, the derivation is same. There, instead of S, here is a word. There is a NB stem. Stem is wa, and here there is a VP. There is a inflectional phrase. Here there is a suffix, tensile suffix, the agreement and. So you can see that the both syntactical derivations and the morphological inflection both are same. It is isomorphemic, which indicates that there is an argument by not Dixon. Today's morphology is yesterday's syntax, and you can see that how morphological structure or how the syntactical structure is clearly reflected in morphological inflection. So this is very clear that morphological and syntactical principles are almost same. You can see this is the way. See syntactically, verb V into V and inflectional phrase, verb is va, And word is, you can inflection phrase is tense, agreement, tense is the, agreement is and. Same as the case. Instead of that VP, word stem, suffix, stem as OA, suffix is tense, agreement. So syntactic derivation and morphological inflection is same. So this is one of the very very strong argument against lexical hypothesis. So one thing you should understand that all the way of challenging the basic notions, basic arguments of lexical hypothesis, Anderson's and the team, they are developing the morphosyntax. As much as they are developing the morphosyntax, that much that linguistics theories are expanding to include the languages other than the Europe. Especially, you can see Dravidians and Turkish and Arabic. These are the inflectionally rich languages. For these languages, a paradigm is developing. So this is called mirror principle. Morphological derivations must directly reflect syntactic derivation and vice versa. So both are reflected. So, as per the mirror principles, syntactical derivations mirror the morphological inflection or derivations, whatever it is. This is like a mirror. And see, you see one more example. See, അവൻ ഓടി വന്നു എന്നിട്ട് പോയി. See, here again, അവൻ ഓടി വന്നു എന്നിട്ട് പോയി. Here he came by running and left. Here ഓടി വന്നു, you can stop there, എന്നിട്ട് പോയി. So this is a completely a syntactical expression. But same syntactic expression can be done by morphological expression. ഓടി വന്നിട്ട് പോയി. See, run past, there is no, gap. ഓടി വന്നിട്ട് പോയി. Came by running and so on. So see the derivations. See, if you look at the syntactical operations of odi vanittu poi, you can see avan is a noun subject, and there are v1, v2. V1 is odi, v2 is vannu, conjunctive form is ennittu, and v3 is poi. Here avan odi vanittu poi. Look at the equivalent word inflection in the other side. ഓടി വന്നിട്ട് പോയി. Stem 1, stem 2, and affix 1, affix 2, affix 3. ഓടി വന്നിട്ട്. See, the same way, the order of syntactical operations and the order of affixes in a compound word is same. So this indicates that there is a syntax within the morphology, and there is a possibility of the morphology within the syntax. So therefore, but the three arguments made by the lexicalist hypothesis thoroughly challenged by morphosyntax, and this is the beginning of morphosyntax. So this is here that the order of the affix reflect the order in which the associated syntactic operation apply. So this is the theoretical base on which we have now challenged the notion of lexicalist hypothesis. There are three arguments we have. One is phrasal syntax can feed the word formation, which is against the basic core argument of lexicalist hypothesis. And then second one, phrasal syntax have access to morphology, and this is also one of the counter argument of lexicalist hypothesis. Third one, morphology and syntax obey the same principles, which we have criticized based on data and theoretical notions of mirror principles. Now, our question was why morphology? First one, theoretical need for the advancement of the discipline. Second is the data driven. Morphological richness of language across the world. You can see the world map of languages. There, each color represents each morphological type of language. You can see that red color indicates analytical, and the blue color include fusional, and the green and light green and dark green, which indicates inflectional, agglutinative, because polysynthetic means a combination of both. So you can see majority of the languages in the world is inflectional and agglutinative. So since it is agglutinative, the theory developed by languages based theories developed by languages based on analytical or fusional may not be applicable may be applicable, but not that much adequate to applicable for the description, explanation of the inflection, agglutinative languages. That is the need of the data-driven need of morphosyntax in the coming days. So when you come to India, so I used to tell that what extent Chomsky syntax is adequate enough to describe and explain the linguistic phenomena in India. There are limitations because if you come with a Chomsky paradigm to describe languages in India, this is like you are coming with a cow to a field which can eat only some selected leaf, selected plants. So it won't eat all the it won't it cannot digest all the it cannot digest all the the richness of Indian languages, structural immanences of Indian languages. So therefore, you should develop morphosyntax. Morphosyntax is the only potential of scope of linguistics in India, and above all, I am sure that it will decolonize linguistics in India because the moment you apply a linguistic notions, descriptive methodology, which was developed based on the languages belongs to other type, those notions cannot describe the languages in India. Therefore, morphosyntax is the scope. It is the it's the scope of linguistics in India, and therefore all the descriptive grammar which we have developed earlier, you cannot see any chapter. Suppose if you look at any descriptive grammar in any languages, you can see chapters like the phonology, morphology, and syntax. That's all. I have never seen any of the chapter which deals morphosyntax in any of the descriptive grammar in India. And see that indicates that we are cutting the leg, cutting the part of the body depends upon the bed. That is the things what we are doing now. But morphosyntax is a good beginning, and I'm sure that as much as morphosyntax developed in India, that much we can describe because our languages are very rich in morphology, and you cannot say weak in syntax. See, for example, അവൻ ചെയ്യുമായിരുന്നു is a very highly inflectional, highly agglutinative word in Malayalam. അവൻ ചെയ്യുമായിരുന്നു can be expressed in English, he would have been done. See, you can see that whatever you can explain, whatever an English, whatever the structure you are expressing through syntax can be expressed through a word in Malayalam. Not only in Malayalam, almost all the Indian languages we are using the maximum potentials of morphology, and that doesn't mean we don't have a syntax. The English syntax is our morphology. So we are expressing all the morphological features which is provided for human language faculty in morphologically. So that can be explained not only by morphology, not only by syntax, but by the combination of both. That is where we need morphosyntax. This is the two, I want to brief you. First point, why morphosyntax is that one is theoretical need of the advancement of the discipline. Second thing, the field, the reality, the phenomena which linguist deals need some more inclusive paradigm to describe those languages. Therefore, we need morphosyntax to be expanded. Now, what is morphosyntax? Just have a break 1 minute. Let me check it whether it is recording properly or not. Yes, done. Now, see, morphosyntax, as we say syntax, it has two meaning. One is MS used as to indicate a morphosyntactic structure of a language. At the same time, you can say, a morphosyntactic structure of a language, or you can use it as a morphosyntactic study, like syntax of Malayalam and syntax of Malayalam. One syntax indicates that the syntactic structure of Malayalam. The other use of syntax indicate the syntactical study of Malayalam. So morphosyntax also used as a noun, as an adjective. And a linguistic term used to refer to grammatical categories or properties for whose definition criteria of morphology and syntax both apply. Because when you use any category, any grammatical category, which definitions expand across the boundaries of syntax and morphology, that is basically a morphosyntactic category. So MS deals with the structure of a word in relation to syntax. The marking line between morphology and syntax is not easily accessible in highly agglutinative languages like Dravidian, Altaic, Arabic, etc. Very difficult to find out the boundary between the morphology and syntax. The boundaries are made, not given. The boundaries are made. Therefore, you cannot identify where the morphology ends, where the syntax starts. The interaction between syntax and morphology is not unilateral but mutual. That mutual, interaction we have to describe. So morphosyntax, as definition, it studies the relation between morphology and syntax in a language. We'll see. This is, basically, it is in contrast to the lexicalistic hypothesis. It talk about the configuration. It talk about agreement. It talk about the inherent features of words, which are considered as configurations, agreements, and inherent features of the words are considered as the properties by which morphology and syntax interrelated. So there are some. I told you in the beginning we have a point called. You can see that in this lecture we made some point regarding. See, 1 minute. So I want to be confined to the topic which I have told you, MS properties. So now we talk about MS properties. There are three properties. One is, configuration properties. Second is inherent properties. Third is agreement properties. One more properties which is later added by Anderson called it is a phrasal property, which we are not discussing. You can go through that literature, you can get it. So these are the three properties of a language which is fundamentally morphosyntactical, which are not morphologically completely, not completely syntactical. See, configuration, agreement, and inherent features of word. These are the three properties of word which is morphosyntactical. See, more agreement properties, aspect of the exact form of a word which are determined by reference to the properties of some of the word in the same structure. Suppose if you find a word if you find an inflected word or derived word in a sentence, for example, if you look at അവൻ അവൻ അവന്റെ ഓട്ടം അവൻ ഓടുന്നു. See, the moment you see അവന്റെ ഓട്ടം, the autumn or avan odunu, you can see that odunu and autumn, it is determined by the case marker of the subject. For example, if I say avan odunu, avan means the nominative subject, it will show only a tensed verb, avan odunu. But in the case of avante odunu, it may not be grammatical. Avante autumn, it will be normalized. And that is the why word in a sense structure is reflecting some of the features of the word in the another word in the same structure. That is called agreement property. Second is inherent properties. Some of the properties of the word itself will affect the other words. For example, agreement in Tamil, for example, avan banda and aval banda. So here that avan is a masculine, therefore whatever the verb which comes in the sentence will inflect for that gender. So then the configuration assigned on the basis of the larger structure in which word appears. There are some, the totality of the structure will sentence will affect some of the words also. So these are the three properties which we are going to discuss. Phrasal things is not necessary now. We'll take another course where we discuss in detail. I'll be taking one by one. See, what is configuration properties? The most obvious kind of dependency between morphological and syntactical structure results from the fact that some words are assigned morphological properties which depend. See, some words are assigned morphological properties which depend directly on their position in the larger construction and perhaps on lexical properties of other words within such constructions. See, if there is a five words in a sentence, each word's inflection, each word morphological form is determined by some other words, some other word properties. See, look at the sentence. Once again, the assignment of case in noun is an example. Since this generally depend on a interplay of grammatical structure and the idiosyncratic properties of the particular case marker. Look at the example. Avan vannu, he came. Here the case, here the subject Avan is in a nominative case, therefore it is Vanno. If I change that case of subjects into associative, the Vanno will be ungrammatical. Avanodu Vanno. Here that is ungrammatical. Why? Because the lexical properties of the case marker, which is assigning a different configuration to the word vannu. അവനോട് പറഞ്ഞു. So you can say, but I cannot say, അവനോട് അവനോട് വന്നു. You cannot say that one. So a non-transitive verb cannot assign associative case to an NP. See here, a non-transitive verb cannot. Here the verb is deciding the which case to be assigned to the subject. Here the verb is the point, which is influencing, which is controlling the. We'll come to the technical terms in the next phase of this lesson. A non-transitive verb cannot assign if the verb is if in a sentence, if verb is in non-transitive, a associative case will never come in the noun phrase. A subject will never take the associative case. See, same as the case of adjective, agree. The second is agreement. So first is configuration. Second is agreement. See, adjective agrees in gender, number, and case with the head noun of the NP in which they appear. Verb may agree in person, number, and perhaps properties with subject. Look at the example. Avan vandan. Aval vandal. Here, Avan is in nominative. Avan is masculine, therefore Vandan is coming. Aval is feminine, therefore Vandal is coming. So here, that is called agreement. So the second, here you can see that the relation is not between the words in a sentence. Second is agreement. And there are some properties which is inherent in order to in order for rules of agreements to assign the appropriate categories to the agreeing words, they must obviously be able to have access to the corresponding categories in the word these agree with. For example, inherent properties of the head element are as relevant to such a process as the assigned properties of the agreeing item. Don't worry, I'll explain to you. If adjectives are to agree with their nouns, that is, the rule of agreement must have access to the features of case, gender, and number. If adjectives are agree with their nouns, for example, avan nallavan. Avan nallavan. Here the adjective is nallavan. The adjective is agreeing with the noun. Nallavan. That means that subject is having access to the adjective also. Look at the example. Avan nallavan aanu, aval nallavalanu. The inherent properties of the head. Head means here the adjective is phrase, adjective is the head. Access to the agreeing part of the sentence to which it is agreeing. Here nallavan is since it is adjective phrase, if you remove aanu, it definitely will be an adjective phrase. Navan that phrase is agreeing with that adjective phrase, adjective inflection is agreeing with the other part of the verb. So therefore, the inherent properties of the head, which is the head, if adjective is the head, the inherent properties of the head will agree with the other part of the sentence. And now, these are the what we told. There are 3 points: configuration, agreement, inherent are the three morphosyntactic properties. And now, next one is to be in detail, features and value. See, there are properties, there are features. So grammatical features value are two types. Generally, we have features. The features value is inherent when it arises from within the element. For example, some of the features are inherent. I'll explain to you. The feature value, there are some features are inherent with some of the word. For example, gender, number, these are inherent features. There are some features are contextual. That features will be reflected when the word will be in a context. Look at the examples. Once again, explain to you that an inherent features value may be fixed to the element bearing it, or it may be selected from a range of options available to the element. Vast majority of the languages that have a gender and number, these features are inherent features of noun rather than being required by the syntactical context. Irrespective of where it comes, every noun in language have a number, gender features. Number, gender, and person features. These are the inherent features of a sentence. And the features will have value. I will come to the value later. For a verb, every verb will have a tense, aspect, mood. These are the features of the verb. So a noun will have a features, number, gender, and person, and a verb will have a features like tense, aspect, mood, etc. So, contextual features are those found on the agreement target on governees. So, earlier, what I told you, the gender, number, and persons are the inherent features, and tense, aspect, mode are the inherent features of the verb. But when you come to these features, will express whenever there is in a context also. For example, gender will be have a agreement features with adjective verb. For example, avan nallavan, avan vandan, aval nallaval, aval vandal in Tamil, but not in the case of Malayalam. But number also same thing. Our nallavar, our vandar. Same as the case of words, case adjective predicate on. Structural case on noun. These are the features which will reflect whenever there is an agreement, whenever there is an agreement features, not inherent features. See, morphosyntactic features is a feature whose values are involved in either agreement or government. I'll explain to you what is agreement and government. Morphosyntactic features are contextual features found on target and governees. Inherent features found on controller and agent. I'll explain to you what is this things. See, one minute. Yes. See, both agreement and government are concepts that are necessary to describe inflection morphology. For example, controller target, governor governee. For example, uh, agreement. For example, Avan Vandan. Avan is the controller. Target is the verb. Every morphosyntactic features will have a two components. One is the controller, which is having the inherent feature, for example, gender number, which have a target to a verb. So this will control the inflection of the verb. That is called controller and target. And same as the case of the government. This is called agreement. The second is called government. Government, I told you, the verbal form which assign the case. For example, a verb which is intransitive will never have a verb which is having a transitive verb will never will assign a associative case to the subject noun phrase. So there are 2 points. One is agreement, one is government. When you come to agreement, it is controller and target. Controller is the source which reflect the target. Subject is the controller. The features of the controller, like gender, number, person, will reflect on the verb. Verb is the target. So when you come to government, the governor and governee. What is governing? Here the verb is governing. Head is governing. What is governed is the uh, you know uh, the noun phrase. NP is the governing. So this is the one thing. And let me come back to the point. See, how to identify. See, once you have a minimum, idea about what is morphosyntax, as a linguist, your job is to identify the morphosyntactic features. So I just give a small list of, a table of features: gender, number, person, case, definiteness, finiteness. You can list out all the grammatical features in a language. Then you put two criteria. One is agreement, one is government. So you can mark whether the gender is having an agreement with any other forms in the sentence. So you can mark it. Whether a number is having, person is having, case is having, case is having both. Case is an agreement, case is having government, both. So same as I guess, for example, finiteness is one of the very interesting feature which you can study, especially in the languages belongs Indian family of languages, where we have a different stock languages which is South Indian, South, and it is a Northeast concentrated languages which we have, and same as the case of the Hindi and other languages. Same as the case of Tamil also. So what you can identify is that you list out the features in a language, see whether it is reflecting on the agreement or government. If it is reflecting on agreement, it is morphosynthetic features. So that is the way you can invent, you can identify the morphosynthetic features in a language. And then one more thing, once you identify a feature is a bundle of values. Like we must have heard about Roman Jacobson, or the Russian school of linguistics, bundle of features in phonology. So a gender may have a different number of features like feminine, masculine, neuter. See, this is the only values of the feature. For example, if I say a color is a feature, there are different type of color we have. There are white, blue. We can have a number of colors. It is infinite. It will, in the sense we know we have access only to these colors. Same as the case of gender, we have feminine, masculine, neutral. We may have some other gender also may come in some other languages. Same as the case of tense, past, present, future. Tense is the future, past, present, future are the values. So feature is a bundle of values. The number of the values are not definite. I told you in the beginning, out of the 7,000 languages, only 10% of the languages is studied. So whatever the values which we have now is based on all these languages. When you study more and more languages, you may have a more number of values. Some of the values may not be, may not be included in this feature also. Then you can have to create a new feature also. So therefore, past, present, future are the value of the tenses, same as the case of number, singular, dual, and many. See, for example, Dravidian languages, we don't have a dual, but when you talk about Indo-Aryan, we have a dual, ega, dua, behu. So see that value is missing in Dravidian. That doesn't mean it is missing. It is not there. So the moment your job is to identify the feature, morphosynthetic feature. Once you identify the feature, you identify the values. Values may be more explorative. As much as you study more and more languages, you may get more and more values. For example, tense. For example, tense have a verb is having a different feature like tense, aspect, mood. We have a different aspect, number of imperative. We have a different mood. So that is the way. As much as you study the language, that much values will come out. As much as values will come out, when you group values, that much you can have a number of features. And 1 minute. Yes. Uh, then that is the this is the keyboard. I'll give the list to you. Defines a morphosyntactic feature as a feature whose values are involved in either agreement or government. See, a morphosyntactic feature have number of values. For example, I give you Avan Vandan. Here that is an agreement. Here the value, there are two. There is a feature called in the noun is the subject. The value of the noun, feature of the noun is number, gender, These are the features which is having an agreement with the verb. But in that agreement, with that agreement, feature is only an abstraction. Within the feature, we have values. For example, if it is a person is a feature, first person, second person, third person. We have a three values. We have to see whether these values are agreeing. So, in fact, what is realizing is the values are interacting, values are controlling. So, the agreement is between the values. So, this is the one very micro phenomenon you have to look at very closely. As much as you describe, that much you can explain. So, but the point I am telling you, morphosyntax need more description than explanation. So, Malayalam we used to say kunnolam, vivaranavum, kadugumaniyolam vichadikaranavum. As much as you describe the languages, as much as you identify the number of, see, identifying the feature is not easy. The identifying the values, whether it is governing value or it is a agreement value, you have to identify. And when you identify the value, from value you can go to features. Sometimes when you identify a value which cannot be fit into an available feature, therefore you have to create a new feature. So definitely there will be more than one values available in the feature. For example, you can see the number is a feature in Dravidian. We have only two values, singular, plural. When you come to Hindi or Indo-Aryan languages, we have three values. We have ekavachana, dvivachana and bahuvachana. But when you look into some other languages which we do not know, that sometimes they may have ekavachana, dvivachana, trivachana, and maybe more number of values will be there. So this is the task of a linguist who are working in morphosyntax, is to identify more and more values, and whether it is in agreement or in government, and put these values into features. Then we can generate more number of morphosyntactic features. Both agreement and government are the concepts that are necessary to describe inflectional morphology. Both involve specifying or determining a feature value on an element in clause. Yeah, and in every agreement, there will be a controller, there will be a target. Every government, there will be a governor and a governee. A number is a morphosyntactic feature if it is participants in agreement of government in the language, regardless of whether it is expressed on the control or not. Sometimes it may not be expressed at all. For example, singular is not marked in Dravidian languages, but it is expressed in the agreement. If number is not found affecting other elements of the clause, it can only be regarded as a MS feature in the language. So, the point I am telling you, I just stopping this class here. It needs more exercise. It needs more description of languages. It needs more language and more description of languages which are not described at all. So the only thing you have to identify, the job of a linguist who are working in morphosyntax is to identify the morphosyntactic features, identifying the values, see the values are in agreement or in the governance, identify the target if it is an agreement, identify the controller and target. If it is in a governance, identify the governor and governee. These are the tools which you can use to expand morphosyntax in the languages which you want to study. So for this, there are some works which I would like to tell you. First one, the major works you have to go through is that Anderson's works. Anderson was keep on writing, especially the 1992, the article which appeared in Linguistic Inquiry, where is morphology is very important, and especially mirror principles, and Thomas Piani's describing morphosyntax, a guide for field linguists. And better I suggest to you, there are two works came in Dravidian languages. One is P. S. Subramanian's Morphosyntax of Dravidian Languages, and Sanford Stever analyzed to synthesize. And the syllable formation also one of the best work. And even Professor Ramakrishna edited a work, agreement in Dravidian languages. These are the works which you can use, especially P. S. Subramanian is not putting the things in the paradigm, but heavy rich data which we have provided. If somebody want to work on Dravidian languages, morphosyntax of Dravidian, it is the best model, best rich data which you have. You can work it on it. And one more thing, if you want more study, if you want to have more work on features to identify the theoretical expansion of features, Anna Keyboard and Gavella Cobert work on features. These are all available on market, or it is available online. And suggest to you Dixon's 3 volume of linguistics, basic linguistics theory, 3 volume, you can go through it. And these are the works which you can, if you somebody want to advance morphosyntax. So what I am expecting you from that, uh, uh, 1 minute, I want you to understand the how morphology and syntax are in relation, and there you are breaking the boundary of Chomsky syntax, and you are challenging the notion of lexicalist hypothesis, where you can see the relations. Then you should be able to identify the morphosyntactic features, and you have to analyze that features, and then at the end, maybe an advancement of the discipline, you should be able to develop the morphosyntactics, the arguments, either based on your languages, or if you want to have a more theoretical argument, you can develop, you can collect the data from different linguistic database. Based on that, you can do it. And in brief, what I want to tell you, morphosyntax is theoretically is an advancement of the linguistics, and it is a convergence. It is not against any of the paradigm, but it subscribes all the good notions of other paradigms. For example, you can see the government is a notion developed by Chomsky, and the control and that agreement is not completely Chomsky, but it subscribe all the good concept developed in other disciplines. At the same time, it advance, it challenge, it break the boundaries, and that is the one theoretical advancement. Second thing, to advance linguistics in India, you all of you know that linguistics, modern linguistics, in spite of the rich linguistic heritage which India or Bharat have from the ancient time, modern linguistics in India is introduced as a colonial subject by missionaries and British people, and uh, therefore, to Indianize linguistics. Therefore, what they have studied languages in India, what the description which we have a colonial type of grammar which we have. Even after independence, we have an American model where we have descriptive grammar. You cannot see any of the chapter regarding morphosyntax in any of this work, even though our languages is very rich in morphology, and Anglo-Indian languages will not express the syntax as it is, but it express syntax only in morphology. Such a rich, morphological rich languages which we have, where we need morphosyntax to study the richness of our languages, where we need morphosyntactical tools to advance linguistics from in India. Otherwise, we'll just take the cow from the Europe or from MIT, which eat only the grass which you eat prefer. We want a cow which eat all the grasses in India. Therefore, I suggest you the coming century of linguistics in India is the advancement of morphosyntax. That is the only way we can describe the languages with its immanence, with its richness. I wish you, hope you can do it. That is what I was expecting from this class. Thank you.